An announcement, a great moment is due in the Commons today. It's an announcement that will affect, well, a huge amount of public spending and potentially as well change the shape of the nation, bringing the north metaphorically closer to the south. But is the new high-speed rail line from London to Birmingham and eventually to points beyond really value for money? That argument will not be over today. In fact, it'll be reinvigorated. In a moment, we'll talk to the man who introduced the whole scheme when Labour were in power. But first, Mike Thompson has been listening to the arguments for and against HS2.
Critics of this high-speed rail project don't mince their words. Martin Tett, leader of Buckinghamshire County Council and chairman of the anti-HS2 group 51M, had this to say on Saturday's Today programme.
We've employed experts in the rail industry and business experts to look at this business case. And it really is not so much a business case, it's more of a basket case.
Mr Tett's conclusions are based on the calculations of former Deputy Director of British Rail's Network South East, Chris Stokes. Now an independent rail consultant, Mr Stokes, who has studied both the £32 billion HS2 plan and its alternatives, insists that the extra capacity needed for rail travel could be achieved by building on what we already have.
At the moment, the intercity trains from Euston are 9 coaches long. They could be extended on most routes to 12 coaches, and one at least of the 4 first-class coaches could be changed to reconfigured to standard class, and that would give a massive increase in capacity, getting on for double the standard class seats per train without having to run any more trains and without having to do any major infrastructure work. The key question is, will the alternatives meet the forecast growth in background demand, if you like, which government are claiming? And the answer is yes, it would.
Chris Stokes says such an alternative solution would cost between £2 to £3 billion, less than a tenth of the sum of HS2. Added to which, he claims, upgrading existing infrastructure will be far less disruptive for Euston Station, which could already cope with longer 12-carriage trains.
High Speed 2 Limited acknowledged that it's an 8-year reconstruction project, and that is going to cause enormous disruption over an 8-year period. One rail expert at a conference last year described it as open heart surgery on a conscious patient.
Mr Stokes dismisses assumptions made by HS2 proponents that all time spent travelling on trains is wasted, claiming that the proliferation of mobile phones, laptop computers and other IT devices mean that passengers can always keep themselves busy. And in his view, if we're going to spend vast sums on Britain's rail network, we should start elsewhere.
Of all the mainline routes out of London, actually the intercity services from Euston are far from the most crowded. There are more pressing needs to provide more capacity on the rail network than on the West Coast main line. This is not a priority, in my view.
There we are, some voices on HS2 captured by Mike Thompson, and we can talk now to Lord Adonis, who is the Labour peer who was Transport Secretary under the last government, introduced the scheme. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Can we deal with, it's a slightly sort of detailed point, but a terribly important one. A lot of people who are against it say there's a fundamental flaw in the analysis about productivity, that actually the assumption has been made that business people, and indeed other people, won't be working, don't work when they're on trains. And of course, as everyone knows, ever been on a train, actually they do. What's your response to that?
Well, some people work on trains, some people don't.
But you can.
We all behave differently. Of course you can, and with Wi-Fi, you can often work effectively on a train.
So that was quite a mistake then, wasn't it, in the analysis, which seems to assume that people aren't working on trains?
The crucial argument for HS2, and this comes back to the criticism that's just been made that I want to take head on, is that we will need the extra rail capacity. Now, I'm afraid that the argument